Now we will start our session with Dr. Abdulrazak Al-Jazairi. Dr. Abdulrazak he will take with us today regarding a day of the life in the clinical pharmacist as a researcher. Dr. Abdulrazak is a clinical pharmacy consultant in the field of the cardiovascular pharmacotherapy and the director of the pharmaceutical care division at the prestigious King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. He received a Doctor of Pharmacy degree from Campbell University, North Carolina, in the United States of America, and General Pharmacy Practice Residency Program from Duke Medical Center. In 2000, Dr. Al-Jazairi completed 2-year specialty residency in the cardiovascular pharmacotherapy from Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, University of Science in Philadelphia, in conjunction with the hospital universities in Pennsylvania. Most recently, at 2014, Dr. Al-Jazairi earned a master's degree in pharmaceutical and healthcare businesses from May College, University of Science in Philadelphia. Dr. Al-Jazairi is a board-certified pharmacotherapy specialist with added qualification in cardiology. Dr. Al-Jazairi has more than 30 original research and publication and international presentation. He is a lead pharmacist in the Saudi Clinical Pharmacy Society. In 2018, currently he is chairing in the Saudi Pharmacy Board. He is editorial member of the prime journals, including Annal of Pharmacotherapy Journal and the Annal of Saudi Arabia. He is participating in several committees in the Saudi FDA, Saudi Commission for Health System, and Saudi Health Council. He is chaired in the Clinical Research Committee and Research Center in King Faisal Hospital. As Dr. Al-Jazairi enjoyed training the students and residents in the cardiology and the evidence-based medicine. He is a director and the only cardiology residence program accredited by SHP in King Faisal Hospital. He served as associate professor in the School of Pharmacy in Qasim University. Welcome, Dr. Abdulrazak, and I'm so happy to be with us today in this session today to speak about one of the most important messages we hope all of us and all the pharmacists who are with us to take, which is a day of the pharmacist and a day in the life of the clinical pharmacist as a researcher. Dr. Abdulrazak, are with me?
دكتور رشا السلام عليكم.
سعيدة جدا بوجودك. عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا بيك.
أنا أسعد كالعادة. يعني it's a very exciting meeting, and I was happy also to attend part of the previous presentation. And it's very active program, very nice, nicely put together program. So congratulate you for all this great success every time. And mashallah, you are one of the people who are really very progressive and evolving. As the profession change, you change. This is really good, and it's given me a great pleasure to be with you today and with the audience who are attending with us.
Thank you, Dr. Abdulrazak. We have the session today. We will start إن شاء الله بإذن الله. هنبدأ السيشن بتاعنا as a day in the life of the clinical pharmacist as a researcher to share in scholarship and publication. فإحنا معانا 2 main questions النهارده هنسأل فيهم دكتور عبد الرزاق. هو يكون معانا بخبرته ما شاء الله في مجال البحث العلمي. أول حاجة, what's your recommendation regarding a day in the life of the clinical pharmacist and the role of the pharmacist in scholarship and publication?
Now, maybe just start from the very beginning. Research, I believe, all of us, we've been born in this profession. We always ask questions, and many of what we do, not necessarily we understand it very well. And you will find yourself, I find myself every day with lots of questions. I believe all of us, the day when we really get to know and learn something, it's becoming a very exciting day for us. And you will feel really achieved, you learned, and that's making a big difference. I believe pharmacy profession and pharmacists are general. They are always after answering questions, finding answers. Although we deal with lots of ambiguity in our day-to-day practice, we have lots of gaps in literature. We have lots of gaps on the way we deliver patient-centered care. And we think we know, but with time we realize how much really we don't know. And that's the opportunity for research. Research is getting again born with us in this profession because it's a very exciting profession from drug therapy point of view. We thought, and if you ask any layperson about pharmacy, medications is what's coming to your mind. And to think about this, how would a medication really relieve a pain or relieve a depression or control a blood pressure? All these are very interesting questions to be answered. And we thought mechanism of action, understanding the mechanism of action, will be something make us really understanding pharmacology. And then when you are released to the actual life, it's not about that mechanism of action. It's not about understanding or the side effects of medications. It's way beyond this. It's beyond an actual human being standing in front of you, waiting for you to help him, take care of him for management, achieving therapeutic outcomes in the safest possible way. And the third dimension was with the cost-effective therapy, where therapy affordability is becoming a major issue. I remember I got very excited about these questions when I was in my internship, and I was lucky to work with, again, people who taught me how to think everything through until you get the right evidence for what you do. Don't take anybody word of mouth, no matter who's that person, no matter what they say and what they know and how much experience. I'm sure we learn from them. Please have a reality check or evidence check on what we hear. And that was very exciting. The first case I encountered was in an anticoagulation clinic. I still remember that patient very well. He came with an INR of 7.1. He's getting his medication the same dose, no change. And we were really worrying because it was very high risk of bleeding and we needed to reverse it. We did not have a PCC at that time, so all the discussion was about vitamin K. But that patient didn't change anything, and she was really scared. How would this happen? What happened to me? And that was a very exciting question. And at that time, we learned how much she was struggling around. She had bad diarrhea, and we started to link the diarrhea to increase in INR. When you check the literature, you're going to find lots of data about the impact of specific bacteria in the intestine, in the metabolism and oxidation of and activation of vitamin K and some substances that might affect the INR. And that was a very interesting and eye-opening. And we published that article maybe in 90s. And that case, it is very interesting because that was published maybe in 1998, and I still get citation for that case report. Everybody doing drug disease interaction, they mentioned diarrhea because of that case report. And I realized how important to have what you are coming across every day published, shared with others, learning from each other. And that's the essence of the experience. The experience can be confined to you, to your team, until you really publish it and make it available to everybody. Of course, it takes lots of effort and time to go above and beyond from skills, from time, publish what you have. But through clinicians, through researchers, they will not feel it's a burden. Rather, they will feel it's something enjoyable, and they do it even on their own time. Now, talking after 20 years being a clinician and being really fascinated with research and publication, I have to say it is something that you grow with and you sharpen over years, over times. It takes lots of courage to say, well, my target this year to get 5 publications, 10 publications, 1 publication. Then you will decide on which journal you will send to, what type of impact factor. Also, you start to dream bigger with regard to the study design. You would like to move from case reports or review articles to meta-analysis, or from meta-analysis to prospective, from retrospective trial to prospective studies. All this come along as you really accumulate more skills over time. I work in cardiology, as you mentioned, Dr. Rasha, and I mainly look after cardiac surgery patients after cardiac surgery, and I look after pediatric and adults. You cannot imagine the opportunities these patients brought to me during my career. The number one teacher for me over these 2 decades were really the patients. Patients' data, patients' imaging, patients' labs, patient clinical signs and symptoms are the biggest and the most important teacher. And I deal with many critically sick patients on ECMOs, on cardiac bypass, ventilators, and patients who have heart transplant, valve replacement, coronary artery bypass grafting. And every patient is a dilemma by itself, bringing a new challenge for you. And that's my field of practice. And actually, all my publications, at least that I succeeded to publish, or the others that I did not succeed to publish, were inspired and came from my patients who were teaching me something new every time. And I take that thing, I publish it on paper. Real researchers, they gotta find opportunity in everything they see and everything they do on daily practice. They will not find an effort. These questions jump into your head once you face a dilemma with the patients. We have to take this responsibility at the end of the day too, because these patients who made it to King Faisal, for example, specialist hospital, to do the surgery, they would like to make it successful, beautiful experience until they get discharged from the hospital. And it's your responsibility to make sure these patients, they got the best care, evidence-based therapy, optimization, and safe regimen. And anything below optimal will not be acceptable. And when you get challenged on a daily basis with these questions and lack of evidence, that's the opportunity for you for research. That's the opportunity for you for publication, and try to find some answers to your questions. So our daily practice, day-to-day practice, is really just providing care, and that practice will provide you with all new ideas or questions that waiting an answer from us. So that's our usual day.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul. That's the usual day. But regarding the new pharmacists, which will be new in the clinical research and publication, they couldn't know how to start. Most probably, all of the question, how to start. What's your recommendation for them?
Yeah, again, maybe I've been taking lots of residents and pharmacy students with me. How to start? It's the same start. You start from the patients. So always, when we review patients first, we need to know why he's getting these medications. What type of evidence do we have? What's the correct therapy for this patient, considering variability in their labs, in their images, and their patient, in their satisfaction and response to this. And if you have an answer, that's good. Most of the times, really, you do not have an answer. If you are systematically and structured in the way you look at patients, always you're going to find unfulfilled information or need with these questions. Go and dig into the literature. If there are no clear answers for these patients, this is the right study research questions. So you start as a pharmacist or as a student, as a fresh graduate, start with the patients, being structured patient reviewer, and every time you struggle to find the best answer for this is a research opportunity. I'll give you a real example. We rounded on a patient who was very agitated post-cardiac surgery. He has atrial fibrillation, and we need to treat his agitation. What will be the optimal therapy for managing agitation for this patient, considering this patient is a heart failure patient, he has atrial fibrillation, he's on amiodarone that can cause Q2 prolongations, butorphanol can cause Q2 prolongations, haloperidol can cause it, and this is now the first line therapy. What would be the second line therapy? Maybe risperidone, okay, maybe olanzapine, maybe. So go and dig into the literature. You will not find a clear answer for this population. That's an opportunity for research. So it starts from the patient. Try to look at all parameters that the patient is having when we talk about clinical research here, and look at what's published as standard of practice, what's the level of evidence, and find that opportunity. So always having a structured, schematic approach in providing patient-centered care. Look at the level of evidence. If you don't have enough evidence, you don't have enough studies, you cannot get an answer. Trust me, everybody is struggling with the same question. So it's an opportunity for research. So that's my biggest advice. Don't work away from patients. Be by bedside all the times. You're going to get more and more questions. The more you stay away, less and less opportunity to find good research ideas.
There is another question most of the pharmacists ask us about the clinical research. What if the pharmacist is working in the community pharmacy or ambulatory care or outpatient or academic institutions such as university students or pharmacy education? How they can find that research question that they can continue after that?
Mm-hmm. Community pharmacy, I have a great respect for people working in community pharmacy. Pharmacists who are working in community pharmacy, they are the number one professions or pharmacists seeing the highest number of patients every day. So if you work in a retail or community, you have the privilege of seeing patients on daily basis. And on daily basis, these patients, they come up with questions. So if you do the dispensing in community pharmacy, there are group of research that can be done on patients on community. One of them is the patient education, patient counseling, medication reconciliation, patient awareness, patient follow-up, safety of medication, patients who come in because they develop side effects. So always there is a great opportunity from this setting because they are in a good place where they see a large number of patients and they deal directly with patients. They can communicate with these patients. So the opportunity is lying from the type of service you are providing, which is, again, first conscious order verification and then dispensing, then reviewing the patient profile, doing medication reconciliation, then counseling. You can assist the patient level, education level, and counseling. It's an art by itself, especially in our community, especially in the Middle East. The understanding of the disease and the medication, the expectation, monitoring. I believe there is a big lag and big opportunity for work and for research with regard to assessment level, developing tools for improving medication reconciliation in that setting, medication counseling in that setting, and improving outcomes in that setting. So that's community. In hospital, in academia, again, the best model is to be teaching what you really practice. So most of the academicians, they teach and they have a practice side. link your research, your practice, what you are teaching to a practice site. Either it's a hospital, either it's pharmaceutical sciences, either it's toxicology. The availability of practice site is a must to continue understanding what's going on in the field. So I have lots of my colleagues from our neighbors, either Al Faisal Hospital here or other hospitals. We work together on genetic studies, in genomic studies, in clinical studies, in academia studies, in patient assessment level, in graduation, on training levels, impact of training on certain patient outcomes. So always try to link the academicians to a practice research in the site that they deal with, even if it's once a week.
This is one of the most important points. Thank you, really, Dr. Abdelrazak, for this, because most of the community and academics are hesitating. How can we start? How can we select the topics? But what type of research studies they can promote, which is easily for them to implement, such as systematic review, observational study? What's your recommendation regarding the type of study for those who are in community setting or academic setting? What do you recommend?
So in community setting, I bet you that we don't understand, we do not know exactly in Saudi Arabia, for example, what's the level of disease and therapy understanding among our population. So if I'm just a simple hypertension or heart failure patient, what's the level of understanding? There are so many scaling assessment tools that are available. First, we need to have a validation study, which is an Arabic language validation studies for these tools. If I'm speaking to a native Arabic speaking in Egypt, is different than Jordan, different than Saudi Arabia. And we really, by the way, all the tools that we are talking about, if they do not get translated appropriately, and that translation validation, that tool will lose its validity. So we always say validation of existing questionnaires and tools can be very important as a first starting point with regard to the observational studies. So when we do cross-sectional observational studies, we need to make sure these tools, when translated into Arabic, are appropriate. One of the things that you can think, and everybody knows about this, we do not have an Arabic dictionary of the medications. Our patients, they really pronounce the names of the medication differently. Same medication, even in the same community, either they don't know, maybe in one of our studies, believe it or not, 80%, they don't know how to pronounce the name of the medication. That's huge, especially in the absence of unified Arabic dictionary for medications for their generic names. I think this is a disaster from an Arabic, since we're not an Arabic-speaking people. So that's a starting point from the education. You have to know the name of your medication. So, if that patient is going to the emergency, visiting other clinic, if they don't have the list of their medication or on paper or on application, how would you know their history, especially when they travel around? So the tools, actually, the validation at the very beginning is very important. Educational level, retention rate of the information, patient revisit, patient awareness about OTC medication. It's a huge opportunity. OTC medication, using any medication from over the counter, it can interact with specific disease-related issues, which is, you can group it, like patients with depression, patients with cardiac, patients with transplant, and look at what type of ATC, especially when it comes to seasonal effect. Now we are in winter. We believe, at least in many of the Arabic countries, in urban medicine, how does it affect and interact with the patient, especially in community. So there are always opportunity with the seasonal change and how things are going. I believe the opportunity, it comes again from the patient. If I have patients coming these days with sneezing, as we mentioned, for example, is it COVID? What should I do? Or is it just a regular flu? What is it? That's a great opportunity. In community pharmacy, we can assist the patient awareness about COVID-19 symptoms. for the patients who are coming to us.
Impressive answer. The last question in our talk today regarding your future recommendation for the future pharmacists in 2021, especially after COVID-19 and all of the pandemic we are seeing in front of us. What's your recommendation, your advice, your suggestion for the future pharmacists?
I think just like many other professionals, COVID-19 came up with a great research opportunities. And you see the high number of publications with regard to COVID-19. One of the positive side of COVID-19 pandemic and crisis is we improved documentation because many people, they cannot come to the hospital sites, have started to do some virtual clinics, virtual rounding, virtual documentation. This is improved documentation. Documentation is a very important aspect when it comes to research. So now at least with COVID-19, we improved in documentation. Many studies can be done if you have an accurate patient medical record. Let us take this advantage of the documentation now, better documentation, in generating more researches, since we don't need to see these patients physically, and the charts are more and more complete. The opportunity that we have in front of us in the future with the evolution of drug therapy is huge. Pharmacists now, we are really living a golden days. We moved from medication that are chemicals to a biological and now biosimilar, and we are moving to a big era, which is the cellular therapy, the CAR-T therapy, gene therapy. These going to open doors for us, huge. So I think tracking the change in the practice is bringing lots of opportunity for research, each in his setting, each in his specialty. I believe understanding the change that we are going through now can help us to give us heads up on the research that we're going to have everyone in his setting and in his specialty.
Fadek. The lifelong learning never stops.